All right, we're past the top of the hour. So in the meantime, as people are joining, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chats, but we're going to go ahead and get started here today. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Thomas Vague, and I am a project director with the Inclusive STEM Ecosystems for Equity and Diversity, or the ICED program, at the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And I work on the AAAS-IUSE initiative, which is hosting today's workshop, Advancing Interdisciplinary Undergraduate STEM Education for Increased Workforce Preparation. We're excited to hear from today's presenters, Dr. Galina Reitz and Dr. Lola Rodríguez-Vargas. Before we jump into the workshop, I have a few housekeeping notes. This presentation is being recorded. The recording will be made available in the coming weeks on our website at AAAS-IUSE.org, and the slides are posted and available on the website now if you'd like to follow along. You will also receive an email with a link to the recording when it's available. Please note we will transition into a Q&A/discussion breakout following the presentations. These breakout rooms will allow for a deeper engagement, but will not be recorded. Additionally, we have closed captioning for this workshop. You can download and view the full transcript by clicking the CC button, and it should be at the top or the bottom of your screen. Now, before turning it over to our presenters, I want to give a little background on our AAAS-IUSE initiative for those of you who are new to AAAS-IUSE or joining us for a workshop for the first time. This initiative seeks to support faculty, students, and the greater undergraduate STEM education community by disseminating research and knowledge about STEM teaching, learning, equity, and institutional transformation. We invite you to learn more about the AAAS-IUSE initiative on our website and hope you will join our community as future contributors. You can also follow us on Twitter at IUSE Program and follow us on LinkedIn to stay up to date on our latest events, blogs, or to share what you've learned at today's workshop. And now we will shift over to a first presentation of the day. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Galina Reitz, Senior Lecturer and Faculty Program Director of the Bachelor of Science in Information Science at Shady Grove, University of Maryland, College Park. So Galina, over to you, and I'll get your slides here in just a moment.
Thanks so much, Thomas. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I really appreciate your time. This is very much a passion of mine to talk about. I have been supporting undergraduate students for the past 15 years in various capacities, and I'm very, very excited to talk to you about today a little bit about some of the innovations that we have done in our college and sort of how we're incorporating career preparation, which for us is critically important when it comes to STEM education. And so through research as a professional track faculty in our college, I am not bound to just doing research, although it's a very kind of nice component of my job. But a lot of my focus is on internships, supporting students through resume building, LinkedIn, career preparation in general, in addition to obviously all of the technical skills that they'll be receiving in our program. And so we're a bit of a unique college. And so I'll tell you a little bit about the College of Information Studies, not too much, but to kind of give you an overview of how we support our students. And our program, the program that I particularly am a part of and direct, is very much focused on community college transfer students. So we support a unique population, mostly juniors and seniors, students who are, have full-time employment potentially or have other obligations, but are really looking to have STEM education and then go into a fulfilling career. And so it's been very exciting to be part of this initiative of creating this really broad interdisciplinary curriculum that I will talk to you about today. So in the next slide, I'll just kind of walk you through a little bit about who we are. iSchools are kind of a mystery, I think. We're kind of like the iPhone iWatch, right? And you put an I in front of it and it becomes interesting. But to me, the I is interdisciplinary, which is really kind of a place that I thrive in. My background is in social science as well as computing. And so I really like to sort of live in that space in between. And the exciting part about being, involved in our college is we focus not only on technology, programming, obviously technical skills and providing our students with data science opportunities, but it's really about people. So humans, right? Technology needs to support individuals, and we're very passionate about having our students have those soft skills as well. So not only be proficient in R and Java and Python, but also be able to perform in an interview, be able to really present themselves appropriately, and kind of have a holistic experience and education. So our focus is very much on, yes, absolutely, what is current in terms of what's out there when it comes to information science and information organization, and making sure that we provide our students with the appropriate skills, technical skills, but also leadership, management, being part of a team. I think those are skills that are really critical, especially if you end up in a STEM program, you graduate, and then you go into a field that's sort of interdisciplinary, right? So it may not be something traditional like computer science. So we thrive on the I, which to us, we're very excited about, and we sort of try to bridge in all sorts of disciplines and bring them into one. And so that kind of makes us a little bit different than the traditional computer science STEM education. So with the next slide, I will kind of give you an idea of what we currently teach and sort of how this sparked my passion in trying to incorporate some new curriculum. And I think all of us come from a place of, we're always trying to figure out, what does industry partners need, right? What are the needs of community, of organizations, of businesses, because we want to make sure that our students are successful in their jobs and in their careers. And so currently, when I came on board at the University of Maryland, we were very much focused on data science, which, as you can imagine, is a hot topic. It's all about, information and building databases. And of course, we have some other skills that we incorporate, such as web development, mobile application development. So we also, in addition to those kind of practical technology skills, involve the humanities as well. So there was definitely some leadership, teams, really working on projects together, sort of similar to what students would experience in the real world, in the workplace. So there was a very nice kind of combination of, yes, giving them an opportunity to kind of incorporate those social science skills in addition to the technical information that they were receiving, but there was still something that was missing. And ultimately, what sparked my interest in developing new curriculum, and in particular, these innovative minors that I will talk to you about, was the idea that, the best source of what is needed is, yes, absolutely, our industry partners. So our adjunct professors who support us, who really are immersed in the real world and have experience and can kind of tell us what types of skills they would like to see from our students, but also from our students themselves, right? And so they're out there, they're exploring, they're online, they're in social media, they're talking to potential recruiters. And so having those conversations with them was absolutely critical in shaping these minors and then adding them to our curriculum. And so through conversations with various stakeholders, we sort of saw these gaps in our curriculum. And if you don't mind moving me to the next slide, Thomas. We provided a lot of, I think, practical skills. So in addition to data science, our majors focus on cybersecurity and privacy, digital curation. So we really support kind of libraries and search and information organization, as well as health IT. So very broad range of classes and curriculum. And the way that we had structured this was through these cognate areas, sort of these specializations. So it wasn't anything concrete. And as all of we're very passionate about making sure that our students are on a very sort of clear path to graduation with their major. And sometimes they may pick up a specialization just to kind of, focus their skills on a particular area. But what I heard from our students was that they would really like to see something on their transcript, really highlighted in their resume. And minors seemed like it was sort of the natural next step. The unique thing about sort of the culmination of all this was exactly at the time when we were thinking about adding new curriculum, an article came out in our university that talked about all of these exciting minors that are part of University of Maryland. And they actually highlighted our college as one of the colleges that didn't have a minor. So if that wasn't sort of the message that we really need to broaden our range of curriculum to our students, I don't know what other message we would have waited for, but it was perfect timing to really think about what are the needs of our students and how can we support them. So if you don't mind moving me to the next slide, perfect. So we looked at our curriculum, not to the point where we extensively sort of went through each course and reviewed it, but we really took a bird's eye view of what was missing and what was needed. And one of the first classes that was brought on that we developed was project management. And as you can imagine, it's not a typical STEM class. It's not usually part of a typical STEM curriculum. It may be in certain programs. It wasn't for us. And so to me, program management really came through talking to our students. They were discussing how they were job interviews, and potential employers were asking them what type of experience they have with running a project from A to Z, how they approach a project. And of course, we give them a lot of practical experience in each of our classes, but nothing that sort of combined everything. And so PM was a great class to start with. And the way that we sort of hire adjuncts and professors who teach our courses is we really like to have individuals with broad set of skills who may have, let's say, certifications. And so the person who ended up teaching our project management course was someone who was a certified project management manager, who worked in industry, who worked for the government, so had a broad range of experience. And that kind of really shaped the way that sort of the class was developed. And after project management, we started thinking about, well, we're very interested in obviously adding minors. They are not heavy on credits. They can be very, very much easily incorporated into the existing major. And it gave students sort of another solid pathway to a specialization or to sort of hone down their skills. And so we were thinking about what are the two critical areas for us. And one of them, and something that I'm very passionate about, was innovation, particularly innovation in technology. And as you can imagine, everything is moving so fast, right? You create one class about innovation, and then you wake up the next morning and there's something new. And so it's hard, absolutely. And looking at kind of how our university had approached entrepreneurship in innovation and technology, there wasn't anything specifically that kind of supported our student population, because we are so interdisciplinary, and we do take a lot of we take a lot of topics from different areas. And so combining that was definitely a challenge. And innovation was exciting. We needed to focus on what that meant and how we would teach it to our students and how we would ultimately incorporate it into our current STEM education. The other was risk management and ethics and privacy. So as you can imagine, cybersecurity is very hot, right? And a lot of cybersecurity programs are fantastic, and they're out there, and they really teach those technical skills to their students. For us, we wanted to take a step back and, of course, provide some technical cybersecurity education, but really not focus on cyber alone. And so for us, information was very much a part of this minor. So information, risk, and ethics is a huge issue for us, and a very hot topic that we teach our students, with data, with managing large loads of data. Ethics, as you can imagine, is very important. And that was a gap that we saw from industry partners as well. They said, we really would like to see these students coming out with a more focused risk management education. And it was something that they couldn't really get out of any other class at the university. So this is sort of how these two minors came about. And the way that we sort of brought these classes together for each of the minors was, as you can imagine, a bit of a kind of, we laid everything out and we tried to kind of see what we already had in our pre-existing curriculum, because we didn't want to start from scratch and essentially develop 20 brand new courses. We had some classes that sort of fit well, and I would say the ratio for our classes in our minors, so we have five classes for each minor, and I would say 2 of those classes were pre-existing, something that we had already taught that we felt would fit in very nicely with the new minor, and then we developed 3 brand new courses. And as most of you know, it was kind of an interesting adventure to go through the process of approving class after class, offering it as a special topics, and then moving it to a permanent class. But surprisingly, everything went very smoothly, and I think it was because minors are such a great way to give students kind of a taste of a particular field. So it was very well received by our university. Let me tell you a little bit about each of the minors, if you don't mind moving me to the next slide. I'll start with the tech innovation leadership. So as I mentioned, this was something that we had in terms of curriculum in the university. We had particularly an entrepreneurship minor, which focused on essentially helping our students start a business. And for us, I think those skills are absolutely great and needed, but for our particular needs, we wanted to teach students how to innovate and be an entrepreneur from within an organization, right? We didn't want to expect that everybody who's graduating with our degree is going to go off and start a new business and build something and try to sell it. So although those skills are important for us, it was, how do you innovate as a middle manager, for example, or within your organization? And to us, it was about problem solving, which I think most STEM majors focus on, right? It's the idea that we really want to be able to give our students problem solving skills and give them the tools to be able to be creative and kind of find different ways to solve something. And so we combined creative leadership. And so I didn't want to give you too deep of an overview, but happy to talk offline. But we the courses that were newly created were lean tech startup, because for us, it was not about, we'll walk you through this really kind of long process of how to build a business, but how do you start something in a lean way? The other class that was really important for us was leading and sustaining a culture of innovation. And so, as I mentioned, most of our graduates end up in technology companies. And so there's sometimes, Lola started sort of the, entry level. And we really wanted to give them the skills to be able to be leaders where they are and ultimately grow. And so culture and innovation was a new class, as well as fundamentals of technology innovation. We felt like, as I mentioned, we gave them the programming skills, how to build things, how to, develop. But to us, it was, what about these sort of great ideas? How do you think about them? How do you, get the support to make them come to life? And so for us, it was not only working in teams, but trying to solve large scale problems. And so it was all about kind of design thinking, iterating, some of the concepts that we already use in our major, but the idea was that we are trying to solve social problems. And so one of the classes that we were very excited about was the technology socialpreneur. So we took it in a different sort of, we took a different approach to entrepreneurship, where our faculty is a social entrepreneur and really focuses on solving large scale issues that involve society, that we could help others. So my field of expertise is aging. So my projects are always focused on how do we support accessibility for older adults, but really it was thinking about what are the populations that could really benefit from technology. So this was our TIL minor, and the next one, on the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about our information risk management, ethics, and privacy. So this was the other gap in our curriculum. We taught ethical hacking, we we still teach human-centered cybersecurity, and some of those courses are incorporated in our risk management minor, but we also wanted to focus on compliance and assurance. So give students those skills where they can go into a health IT company and be able to manage risk, and to be able to be vocal about taking these classes, and having some understanding of how to mitigate security issues. And so, as I mentioned, it's not cyber, it's in parallel, but I think for us, the focus was all about practical experiences. And so we incorporated, as I mentioned, human-centered cyber in the curriculum, but some of our new courses were emerging technologies and risk management. And so what happens when the cloud is hacked, right? What do we do in those types of situations? We included a course in information assurance and compliance. We developed a new course in risk management leadership in the information age. And so how do you deal with these problems as a leader or as part of a team? So ethical issues, obviously very much at the forefront of our curriculum. And we really felt like this was a very kind of nice package of classes to provide undergraduate students with those skills, because we had something similar, but it was on the master's level. So we spoke to our partners at the graduate school, and we sort of figure out how do we translate some of these skills for our undergraduate students. So we were very excited about really giving our students a focus. And it's really great to hear some success stories. And so I'll tell you a little bit about some of the industry partners that we've built through these minors and how we've supported our students. But hearing from partners who are interviewing our students, and they're asking about specific classes, and our students are telling them what they've learned is, as you can imagine, very fulfilling. So we're really kind of seeing that growth and that pathway, which is really exciting. So next slide. I wanted to touch on how we've leveraged partners through these new curriculum initiatives. One of the big ones is AAAS. It's essentially a government contractor who works with our university. They have a lot of risk interns, and they didn't have a lot of risk interns from our major. So more traditional engineering, computer science, other majors, but not information science. And so this was a great way to showcase that through our risk management minor, we could really leverage some of the needs of AAAS and bridge that gap and make it a concrete pathway to internships for our students. So on the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about some of kind of the practical experiences that we tie in with this newly developed curriculum. For us, it's all about strength-based approach. As I mentioned, we often serve a non-traditional student population. And so we really try to make sure that we meet our students where they're at. Some come with excellent programming skills, some come with excellent communication skills. For us, it's really trying to figure out what are they missing and how could we support their needs. So some of the things that we do on a regular basis, and of course, we highlight students who have had some great success through taking some of these courses. We bring in panelists. We have obviously relationships with technology companies. So for us, exposing our students to recruiters and having recruiters talk to our students about how to build a resume, how to highlight these classes in a resume, how to talk about your experience in your program, because sometimes you don't have time to have a job and build that experience before you go into the workplace. So panels have been very successful and very well received by our students. We've worked with Google and Amazon and some of those great companies that are hiring. So it's been very very fulfilling. We also have been very focused on mock interviews, and I am sure you may have this experience as well, where students often they'll graduate, have fantastic skills, but they get in front of an employer and they just have trouble expressing everything that they've learned. And so the way that we sort of mitigate this is we want to soften that, and we want to we usually bring in our industry partners sometimes our professors or others that we have relationships with, and we set them up in a real interview scenario. So those has been really, really helpful. The other aspect that I'm very passionate about is negotiation. And what I've seen throughout the years is that students really need to strengthen their negotiation skills. And one of the questions that I always ask at my mock interviews to them is, what are your salary expectations? And they'll just throw out this number. And then we kind of start this conversation that, where did you come up with this? Did you look at Glassdoor? Did you look on LinkedIn? Where are you coming up with this? So we also had a negotiation skill workshop that was very successful. We had somebody from the business school come in and provide our students with those learning opportunities. And I just saw something pop up in the message about LinkedIn. Yes, absolutely. For us also, it's very important that they have an excellent LinkedIn profile. So for us, it's about real projects. We work as much as we can with our partners to figure out how do we provide our students with those skills. And of course, research and practice and building those research experiences for interested students is also very, very important for us. The one thing that we are now rebuilding is our visits. So that was exceptionally successful. We would actually, put our students on a bus and take them to an actual organization, have them walk around, meet people, network. And so we're hoping to bring that back. So all of this, in addition to our new curriculum, has really shown to really support our students, and we're very, very excited for all of these success stories as they enter the workplace. So I think my time is up. Thank you so much. Happy to talk more. Really appreciate your time.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we're gonna get the other presentation queued up here. Okay. All right, so thank you, Dr. Reitz. We appreciate you sharing your work with us today. I'd like to now welcome our next speaker, Dr. Lola Rodríguez-Vargas, who is a Director of Societal Impact Group at the University of Arizona. So, Dr. Rodriguez-Vargas, over to you.
Gracias, Thomas. Hola, everyone. To start, as Thomas said, I'm Lola Rodríguez-Vargas. My pronouns are she, her, ella. And because we're all sitting down probably, or maybe standing up in our desks, I'd love to ask for you to write in the chat from 1 to 5. How are you feeling energy-wise? It's a Wednesday. How was the weekend? How are you feeling? Thank you for sharing. So I'll share myself. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, so I'm very excited to be with you all today, but I'm not excited about life at this moment because my home country just went through a major natural disaster that is combined with the effects of a lot of other things that are happening back there. So I'm probably at a 1 in that area, and then a 5 to be with you today and share a little bit more about what I love. So just to share with you who I am, I have a background in industrial microbiology. That's my bachelor's. I studied in the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, and I also did a master's in science over there as well, with a focus in biology, but microbial ecology, sorry. And my PhD is in higher education with a focus in diversity and social justice. And I say all of this to say that I love science. I come from a family of scientists, and I love looking for ways to engage students and increase the representation of Latinx students in science. Let's go to the next slide. So today I hope to share a little bit about a project that we did at Georgia State University. I saw in the participants chat that I have a few folks here from Atlanta or from Kennesaw and the Georgia area. So hola, good to see you here. And I'll share a little bit about the general introduction and the problem that we seek to address, some related literature. I want to do an exercise with you all, so please, if you have the ability to, and if you're not driving and listening to this while you're doing something else, please share in the chat. I'm also gonna share a little bit about learning outcomes and the method of assessment that we utilize for this project, the findings, the conclusion, and the application. Let's start. So for the higher education institutions, it's really important for us to know that it wasn't created for a lot of folks. So it was created with white males in mind when it originated in the US. So now that we have changing demographics and universities are composed of different folks that are attending, we have to get creative, innovate, and move universities forward so that they serve the actual people that are attending these universities. And this project was created to provide deep learning experiences that provide these students with the skills necessary for them to solve contemporary problems, as Galina was sharing previously, and contribute to their communities and society. And I'll stop there. This is super important for us that work in STEM with Latina students in retention, graduation, and persistence. So one note is that we know that Latina students specifically have a harder time persisting in STEM if they don't see direct application of their knowledge or what they're learning in their STEM fields with something applicable to what they're interested in and how it benefits their community. So if there is a disconnect between their learning, maybe molecular biology, and how they can apply this, they're going to have a difficult time persisting in their field. So it's really important for me that you have this in mind, to think about what is your background, what is the background of your university, what is the background of your students, and how this all relates to creating interdisciplinary experiences for students in STEM. We need them in the university. And in this is a project that was seeking equity and justice and fairness, recognizing that persons from specific social locations possess inherent access to societal privilege, providing them with a likelihood to achieve outcomes that other persons do not. So the base of this project is understanding that providing equal opportunities for our students as in sameness does not mean that we are advancing their interests if we don't really stop and think about the differences. So as Galina also said, if we have an asset-based approach to our students, we are going to spend more time considering what they are already bringing to the classroom, to the university, to the institution. So in this case, my project was specifically for Latina students, but I would love for you to have your institution in mind. Who are your students? Who are the students that are historically marginalized in that area? Is it rural students? Is it international students? This project was done in Georgia State, which is a minority serving institution. Is it Black students, African-American students, Latina students? Who are the students that you're seeking to serve? Have them in mind while we navigate through this presentation. As I mentioned, this is a project, specifically a capstone project, that was designed to expand the access of Latina students, and it relates to high impact practices. But in this case, high impact practices that were delivered in a culturally responsive way. So we wanted to consider, engage, and center students' cultural knowledge and life experiences. So instead of being very abstract in this, I'll give you a little bit more context of who the students that I was serving at Georgia State University in the perimeter campus. 40% of the students that participated in their capstone project were undocumented or DACA students, Latina students specifically. So what did this mean for them? It meant that they paid 3 times as much for tuition than their peers. So we had a high need, and we had a lot of students that were STEM in this project. Not all of them were STEM. So we wanted to consider ways to honor their heritage and their knowledge. And one way that I approached this was thinking of myself. I come from a town called Jayuya, very rural. And when I had the opportunity to do my undergraduate student studies at the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, I had one faculty member that was from a neighboring town, Adjuntas. He is the director from Casa Pueblo. He's a microbiologist and he leads a nonprofit organization. Connecting with this professor that had a background in microbiology allowed me to understand how my science knowledge would benefit directly my community. So I wanted to create that for our students in this community college, where more than likely they were going to be faced with projects or things in class that might have a general approach, instead of a direct link and a direct approach to their community. So we sat down and talked to the students. What does your community look like? Who do you believe is your community? Is it Georgia? Is it Atlanta? Is it Honduras? Is it El Salvador? Where are your people? Who are your people? Who do you want to spend time thinking about when you're learning science? Who do you want to have in mind? What community? What things are interesting to you? And obviously, they were thinking of COVID. This was during the pandemic. So we had an opportunity to have the students just in an interdisciplinary way work with non-STEM students and STEM students in identifying a problem like mental health issues during the pandemic for the Latina community, access to healthcare during COVID, who was impacted more and why. Other projects included understanding the health conditions in the detention centers and ICE and political views combined with science. Why does it matter that I understand health and law to benefit my community in these detention centers? So again, this approach created an environment, this approach created an environment where the cultural identity was centered. Instead of us identifying topics for them to address and having them choose, we had conversations with the students and guided them, because honestly, these were sophomores at community colleges. It would be unrealistic for me to expect that they are going to immediately know what to study and how. So we allotted enough time to have discussions as groups. We also had graduate students that could come from different fields and talk to the students to ignite that curiosity and to understand how their knowledge connected with the problems that they could solve. And we included 3 learning approaches, 3 learning theories, which is what Galina mentioned before, for example, the asset-based. And again, where does this come from? I think it's really important for me to mention to you today, because I know that you're coming from different positions, and I'd love to see in the chat, what area of the university are you in right now? Are you in student services, academic affairs? Are you a faculty member, student support specialist? If you could share in the chat, that would help me a lot. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Faculty, researchers, academic advising, transfer advisor. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So why do I mention this? And I am going to call on all of your faculty here. Consider that when you are creating a project such as this, there's literature that backs up the effectiveness of these projects, but I haven't met a faculty yet that has enough free time to do everything that they can imagine. You usually have a lot of ideas and things that you can do, but time is limited. And usually you are interacting with students via proposals or via the classroom. So in this specific area, the staff members, the student-facing administrative professionals come into play. And there's something that I want to name today, that there's a lot of elitism in universities, and we have a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge. But for example, if you were to create a capstone course, faculty have a lot more pull than a staff member that is non-faculty affiliated. So I want you to consider in what ways you can collaborate with people that are outside of your department that might be serving the students that you also want to serve. So they might be a student support specialist, they might be in student services instead of academic services. How can you engage with them? How can you ask good questions to develop the projects that you are making happen in the classroom? So as I mentioned, the high impact practices, not sure if you're familiar with them, maybe you are, amazing. It's just a list of things that they discovered that were happening and working in universities, and capstone projects are one of them. So capstone projects can be curricular or co-curricular. In our case, and I just repeated for the benefit, we decided to do it co-curricular because of the economic impact it would have on the students. So if you create a class, that generates revenue for the university if they register for a class. But I also imagine that we make money if the student stays in the university instead of if we have a co-curricular experience that is provided for the students where they can collaborate with each other and have persistence in STEM, it's also going to generate revenue. So again, I want you to think about context. Who are your students? Who do you want to serve so that you can really create an impactful project? It doesn't have to be a capstone. This is just an experience. We can go to the next slide. So let's do an exercise together. I want you can share in the chat, but if not, please grab a pen and paper or open up your word processor in your computer. We're going to spend some time here. So the first thing is that I want you to think about your institutional context. What is the context of your university or your program or your department? It can be as general or as specific as you'd like. You can share in the chat, or you can just have it in your word processor. I'll share two different ones. So one was Georgia State University, Perimeter Campus, and the context of that university was a minority serving institution, which means that most of the students that are enrolled in this university are not white. The majority is Black students and Latina students, composed of about 10 to 15% of the students. And there are other diversities. Thank you, William, for sharing. And the other example that I have is where I'm currently at is the University of Arizona, which is a Hispanic serving institution, which usually means that the university has a 25% or higher. This is just generalizing of students attending that university. I'm reading the comments. Thank you for sharing, Otar. Michelle Grimm is in a highly diverse student population. HBCU, tribal, HBCUs, rural, four-year tech. Thank you, Valencia College, very, very cool. HSIs. Thank you for sharing. So once we understand what the university context is, and it's okay if you don't know, I encourage you to seek out information and the data about your university so that you can determine what your university is. So you've already thought about the institutional context. Once you think about the institutional context, that doesn't mean that the project that you are going to be creating mirrors that reality. For example, I can be working in a Hispanic serving institution, but I am working in an engineering area. And maybe I'm in a Hispanic serving institution, but there is not a 25% of engineering students that are Latine. So hopefully we will work in other ways to address that. But who are our students and who do we want to serve? How are our practices currently serving the students? What are we doing in class? Are we creating projects that serve the students? And I am trying to make this as less abstract as I can. So for example, my experience as a PhD student is that I had courses that forced me to learn about the United States, continental United States context, and spend hours and hours reading about the needs of the US. When what I really wanted was to understand the context of my own country. I'm from Puerto Rico. I wanted to learn how higher education worked there. So fortunately, I had the opportunity to negotiate with my professors. Hey, instead of studying this university in the United States, can I study the University of Puerto Rico and understand how things work there? And they said yes. But how wonderful would it have been if my faculty are thinking of providing ways of examples of things that I can study that are from my country. I don't know if I have any molecular biologists in the room, but one way would be learning about archaea in Puerto Rico, in the Salterns, or learning about diatoms in the forest in Puerto Rico, introducing students to topics such as this, instead of only focusing in studies in Europe, in studies in the US, and that will expand their view of what they are doing and what their role as a scientist in interdisciplinary ways can connect with what they are doing. So once we have thought about the context, about our students, the second step would be thinking, who are the students specifically that are in the room? So I am imagining that you have this laid out Word document when you are taking time to reflect about all these steps. So once I have a laser focus on what my institution is, the second is that I want to study what my environment is. Is it the classroom? Is it the department? Is it an institutional wide practice? And the second is, how do the students look in this program that I'm trying to serve? I'm not going to do a one size fits all. One size never fits everyone. So what is the context of the students? Who are they? Where are they coming from? Do I have access to that data? Have I requested access to that data? I know that I've had the bad experience of being in offices where they don't want to tell me where are the students coming from. So I'm hoping that you take that next step and contact your research office and ask, hey, I want to know what the incoming students are like. Are they online? Are they in person? Are my students Pell students? Are my students from rural areas? Who are my students? If you could please insert in the chat one example of a population that you are really wanting to work with. Be as specific as you can, like female engineering students with South Asian background, whatever that you are thinking of. I would love to see it in the chat. What population are you seeking to work with? First gen, thank you, Nancy. TCK kids, awesome, Paulo. TCK, I'm writing these down. First gen, non-traditional. Thank you. Dual credit. These are awesome, y'all. Very cool. Thank you. Community college transfer. So another thing that I also love talking about with faculty is that this can be a generational thing, or it can be ways that we have learned about how are students supposed to look like. And I'm not talking about race or ethnicity. I'm talking about, for example, are students supposed to be full-time students and nothing else? Versus the reality that a lot of y'all from the institutions that I'm reading, they're likely working 20 to 40 hours, right? And in addition to working 20 to 40 hours, they also have families and caretaking responsibilities, and they have school. So how can we develop STEM and interdisciplinary projects that are going to serve their needs and that are going to increase their retention and persistence? So one very cool approach for this capstone project was us getting creative and finding partners that didn't require physical presence, that they could do in asynchronous ways. So finding data for them to analyze, for example, or finding folks that were in a different time zone that could mentor our students. So thinking about who are our students is going to open up our creativity and help us think, what can I do to be empathetic and to understand that this is the life of my student and they still have the capacity of learning. They are still intelligent, even if they're working 40 hours a week and going to school. So how can I make these things merge so that they can continue learning? Okay, thank you for thinking about your students. The third step would be thinking, how does this program align in we're talking about workforce, right? How does it align with the pathway from college to career? Am I wanting them to create something that's innovative because it sounds cool, because students are going to think that I'm a great teacher? Or do I have specific outcomes in mind that are going to create a smoother pathways from our community college transfer students from community college to four-year, from four-year to career? Galina gave us great examples about how we can integrate different skills. Of course, students are going to be doing this surrounding content. And in my example, content that relates to their community so that they can strengthen that connection with science and persistence. But behind all that content, What we really want are these building skills. What are the skills that you are considering for your project that include the field that you're hoping they go to? As you know, I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a microbiologist and now I work in higher ed. So I really do believe that the universities are built to help us think how to think. But that is for some majors. I don't want a neurosurgeon just to know to think how to think. I want them to know a specific skill and know it really well. So in thinking of your students, if you're thinking about engineering students, if you're thinking about neuroscience students, what are the skills that you have identified in their field to be successful and to be able to find a job? I have a great example of a student that has a 4.0, but he's scared of life, cannot talk in public, cannot engage with others, doing great in class. The student is doing amazing in class. But how am I prepping that student if I continue to nurture their isolation because they're afraid of engaging with others? What environments can I create that are little steps to help them develop teamwork, to help them develop public speaking instead of just thinking about critical thinking? Because we can have very smart students that know how to solve problems, but how does work look like in their field? I hope that you're considering all these three things. Let's go to the next slide. So specifically for this is how building, for example, learning outcomes and methods of assessment can look like. I know that I don't know about you all, but I remember being in undergraduate studies, my microbiology professor that I love so much. But one day he slipped and said, if you want to teach, if you want to be a faculty member, you don't have to know how to teach. I'll never forget that, right? So there's a lot of folks that are engaging with our students that don't really have these skills or are learning about them. So I'm hoping that if you're here, you're seeking for those skills or are polished them, you already have them. So it is not as complex as we might envision. So you're already doing this in your syllabus, but thinking about a project, how do I develop this? And I am mentioning this because I have friends that are in the beginning stages of becoming a faculty, and developing learning outcomes at times can be very overwhelming. So if you have knowledge and you want to share your info in the chat for folks and say, hey, I love developing syllabi, I'm a master in learning outcomes, please share out so that folks can contact you or take a peek in your syllabus if you feel like sharing. So for this, we developed a research proposal during an entire semester and an academic poster presentation for them at a research symposium that ended up inadvertently being very cost efficient because the pandemic happened and it was all online. But this also increased access for all of our students that lived in places that were farther from campus to participate in the symposium. They had to create an original research design by conceptualizing research design methods, identifying a research problem, formulating research questions, developing research hypotheses, and applying appropriate research analysis techniques. Thank you, Nancy. Yes, this is great. Thinking about what we want the students to do and then developing a learning outcome is one of the strategies, and it's also my favorite. And the second one was the in-class oral presentation and then the research symposium. And here it says, so it looks super fancy, right? But I'm thinking of the students that are afraid of speaking in public. So for them to have the practice, we did oral presentations with us first before throwing them in the symposium where people outside of our closed classroom could be. And then they could feel more confident about the way that they were presenting the content and have a cheat sheet of questions that they could expect from the event and the symposium. So they had to design a research poster that would include an introduction, literature review, methods, results, and discussion of the study. This is something very traditional for an undergraduate that's presenting their research, but these were mainly students that do not have access to other opportunities for undergraduate research. So we wanted to mimic this in a co-curricular space that was non-credit bearing. And it included the support of a lot of graduate students and staff members that had knowledge of how to conduct quantitative and qualitative research. Then the third was, again, presenting the research poster that would include all these parts. I want to make a note of the differences between requiring the proposal and requiring the poster presentation. Students are very creative, but they don't have a lot of opportunities to present information in diverse ways. So you might have a student that is really great in creating narratives, but is not so great and is still learning how to condense information. So we wanted to make sure that they had access to us to understand what the difference was and how to transmit and communicate information in a narrative and in bullet points, for example, or in visuals through the poster. And I was recently in a research symposium, and y'all, I am impressed that posters still look the same. I was an undergrad in 2002. It's been a long time and these posters are still looking the same. How can we provide space for students to be creative and still have these traditional methods of introduction, literature review methods? I want to challenge you today. I want to challenge you today to be open into getting out of your traditional PowerPoint slide and let them use other softwares, let them use other colors, have their identity come through with what they're sharing so that they can engage. Obviously, we don't want them to have an orange background with light blue letters that can't be read, right? But being open to creativity so that they can enjoy different things while they're creating their research projects. Let's go to the next slide. And again, I'm mentioning graduate students quite a lot because I do want to mention that this type of project requires a lot of contact with the students, weekly meetings where you can revise what they're elaborating and guide them. I love that, Darcy. Yes. So in community college, access to research labs is very limited. So we do have to get super creative in providing students with research experience that are not traditional. And our training, like mine, might be very traditional, wet lab, as we say, like very traditional experiment. So having the opportunity to think wide and far, and collaboration is going to be very important for that. So I also want to challenge you into considering who can I engage with on campus outside of my department so that we can brainstorm ideas on how to provide these experiences with students if we have limited resources, which is not only at times a reality for our students, but also for our areas. So for that proposal, academic poster, and the parts that they had to submit, we wanted them to analyze and synthesize relevant literature in the selected research field, which I think that it's really exciting when we have the opportunity to walk a student for the first time through a peer-reviewed journal, right? And teach them. My biggest learning from a research paper is understanding that just because I can't understand something doesn't mean I'm stupid. Maybe the person that was writing it didn't really know how to write a paper. So knowing that we're all growing, and the person that wrote it, that was a timestamp of their development in their career. Maybe if you talk to them today, they write a different kind of paper, but that accompaniment of being with the student through their development of that proposal and that poster, instead of just giving them a topic and just freeing them and not doing that very serious accompaniment of making sure that they are doing what they want to do in this development. I love that. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. These are some of the things that we included as the outcomes. So increased access to academic and career opportunities, internship eligibility, smoother process for transfer, and networking with peer and mentors. And the conclusion is that this is going to increase access for Latina students and all students to research experiences. And let's go to the next slide. And again, you're going to do this again in your breakout rooms, but context is the most important thing that we can do, and collaboration. Next slide. Here are some of my references. They're going to be available in the page and in the recording. Next slide. And here's my contact information. If you want to connect with me, I would be more than happy to give you more information. And here are some nonprofits in case you want to engage with us in increasing access for Puerto Ricans now that we are handling the aftermath of Hurricane Fiona. I know that this is just an overview of what we did, but thank you for listening, and I hope that we can continue engaging and connecting.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Rodriguez Vargas, for sharing your work with us. We are now going to switch over to our breakout rooms. Okay, I think we are there. I hope everyone enjoyed their discussions in their breakout rooms. I am going to ask our speakers and facilitators to just share a quick minute recap from what was discussed in their group. So Dr. Reitz, could I start with you?
Sure. I just ended on a mid-sentence. I was giving this really golden nugget of negotiation. No, it wasn't that mind-blowing. But we had a great conversation. We talked about what are some additional skills that our students would really benefit from having, whether it's communication, certificates, badges on LinkedIn. What are these sort of extracurriculars that they could add on to their resume to really be successful? We talked about what has worked at our universities and what hasn't in terms of curricular development and figuring out sort of what other disciplines to work with. And we talked about the politics and how sometimes higher education moves a little bit slow. And so it's hard to innovate, but we all try to do it in different capacities, whether it's with a career course or really trying to kind of figure out what are the needs of our students and listening to our industry partners. So we had a great conversation.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing. It sounds like a great conversation, and thanks to everyone who joined in on the conversation there. I want to turn over now to Dr. Rodriguez Vargas. If you're able to share, I know you might be losing your voice. If so, you might pass it on to Chantel or.
No, that's totally fine. Yeah. So Lola gave us some great content basically in the main room. So I just facilitated basically in her breakout. We had a pretty robust conversation. I think one of the things that really rose to the top is being innovative and thinking outside of the box and creating safe spaces for students, basically, especially when we're having students think about capstone projects or research projects, basically, is making students feel safe enough, basically, to throw out any type of ideas that they may have, basically, and to develop those in a variety of different ways. Think about connections, to their community so that project will be relevant. And then also helping students think about how they can generate a project that possibly could, develop into a pocket of experience that they could actually market for, further employment or, further goals down the road, basically. Along with that, we talked a lot about really utilizing the virtual space for exposure for students, basically. So that would not limit, let's say if your university is in a rural area, or if you're somewhere where you don't have a lot of industry partners or non-for-profits or federal government, whatever it may be. If they're not close to you, then start thinking about ways that you can have virtual engagements, basically, for your students, your faculty, and your staff. So I think that we really had a good conversation. I'll just round out by saying that there were several colleagues that were in our room that said that they generated some great new grant ideas. So I thought that was exciting too.
Oh, that's great to hear. Excellent. I'm glad everyone was able to join and participate in this conversation. I'd just like to close out by thanking our speakers and facilitators and the whole rest of the AAAS-IUSE team and all of you that were able to join us for coming together and putting together this important webinar today. We do have a post-event survey link, which we are posting in the chat right now. And we're also sending it out via email, so you can go ahead and access it after the workshop. The survey takes only a minute to fill out. It's super helpful for us as we develop our series for 2023. Additionally, a recording of the presentation will be posted to our website. You will also receive an email for that in the coming days. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us today. And as always, we look forward to engaging with you and learning from you, our community. Thank you.